I just went to watch now.
Ready?
I stay there the whole time.
Good evening. The time is 6:01. We're going to call this meeting to order. Next item is approval of the agenda. The motion reads that the agenda for council meeting Monday, December 11th, 2023 be approved as presented. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Burton, Councillor Campbell, any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
In regards to item 13.2, that is the recommendation, pardon me, I'm clogged up tonight. Vacant real property located behind Town Hall is declared as surplus to the needs of town of Prescott. I'm going to ask that that be removed from the agenda as premature and needs a lot more work before it gets to this point.
Okay, I don't see the need for that. Do we need to take a vote on that?
I asked for a mover and seconder.
You need to ask for a mover and seconder.
Well, I'll move it.
You'll move it? Is there a seconder? Is there a seconder? There's no seconder. Your request doesn't pass.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? All against? Carried. Item 3 is declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 4 is presentations. There are no presentations tonight. Item 5 is delegations. We have received 2 unregistered delegation requests for this evening. Both are in regards to item 13.2, the notice of surplus land located behind Town Hall. Our procedural bylaw requires a majority vote of council to allow an unregistered delegation to be heard. Does council wish to receive the delegation from Mr. Haller at this time? If so, I will need a mover and a seconder. You're going to move it, Councillor Campbell, seconded. Councillor McConnell. Any discussion?
It's hard to discuss something that hasn't even come to us yet.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, this is on 13.2. It'll probably be in about an hour. So to have a presentation at this time doesn't seem worthy. So I'm going to call the question. If there's no other discussion, I'm sorry.
Can't speak later.
No,
Defer it.
don't take questions. Is there any other discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
You took a question at our last meeting. You set a precedent for taking.
No, I didn't. I didn't set a precedent. I honored a question. I'm not honoring it tonight.
Prerequisite as mayor.
That's right.
Can you do a favor then?
Do you a favor?
Can you quote me the passage from our procedural
No, I can't.
bylaw?
No.
Can you ask Mr. Armstrong to quote the passage that allows council to have somebody speak?
Yes, if we have a majority vote, they can have their delegation.
Yeah?
Sure.
Something like this happened once in my first term on council. And as it turns out, the section that was quoted that either allowed or didn't allow a person to speak was quoted wrong. And because of that, there was a great, I don't know what I would call it, but it wound up costing the town years of turmoil, money, and that may very well be the correct interpretation you're giving of our procedural bylaw. And if you are, I might sincerely apologize. If you're not, I would like to make sure that we have the correct interpretation.
All right. Mr. Armstrong, are you able to shed any light on this?
We're just taking a look at it now. Ask for a moment.
We're waiting.
Yeah. Is this just what they have, or is this what they already have in the hotel? I'm not either,
The other pictures.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of, it's a lot that they want to have.
So my search on audience as well as public, it doesn't mention, and so whether it's to be voted on council or not, so my initial interpretation would be it would be at the call of the chair or the decision of the chair, but I'll also defer to the clerk on that as well.
For you, Mayor Schenker, to council, my interpretation is it's up to the chair. The chair runs a meeting on behalf of council. That's how I interpret it. But again, it can be the will of council.
Thank you, Ms. Velkamp. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
That was my interpretation, but I wanted to have.
So you knew this already?
I did.
Okay, very good.
The reason being.
You just like to waste our time.
Pardon?
You just like to waste our time.
No, because it's up to you whether this piece of person can speak, not council. So the decision is yours.
I know, and I understand that. And they'll be welcome to speak at our next meeting when they put in their delegation at the proper time. Otherwise, as we are doing it tonight, part of our procedural bylaw is if council decides they can speak, then we'll go ahead and let them speak. But at this time, I'm not going to let them speak for questions on something we haven't even voted on yet.
But we've just heard that this is not according to our procedural bylaw. According to our procedural bylaw, it's your decision whether they speak, not council.
No, that's questions from the floor.
I think you're wrong.
I don't. Yes, Mr. Armstrong?
So based on my interpretation from the clerk earlier today, and I confirm that there is a special portion in this procedural bylaw that speaks to delegations, unregistered delegations. Both gave an indication that they wish to speak this evening. And the proper approach to that is then to have council make that decision. The point that I was just researching, and the clerk as well, was that taking questions from the floor. And that's at the choice of the chair.
That's exactly right. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
I'm going to call the question. Does council wish to receive delegation from Mr. Holler at this time? Is the motion. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? All against? Carried. Mr. Holler? You have 10 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. I know most of you, my office down the hall always had a poster of Norman Rockwell. It's called Democracy. And it's just a guy standing up at council. So I appreciate this. First, I want to start and just say that's a park. It looks like, my dad would say, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. But for Prescott, I'll quote Shakespeare and say, a rose by any other name would still smell as sweet. For all intents and purposes, it has been a park for well over 100 years. The investments made into that, the town has re-engineered it for an ice rink, the signs are there, the lighting is there. I bought my home from Sharon Murdoch, who raised her kids there, and she told me how her kids played there. I raised my children playing in that park with families such as the McAllisters, the O'Hanlons, the Jonas, we all played there. We've grown up there. That age has moved on, and maybe they're not there right now, but I hope to sell my home one day to another family based on the fact that we live in a neighborhood with a park. I can make arguments for climate change, that maintaining green spaces and trees and the climate impact is critical, especially as the town looks and the province looks to intensify and increase densification in our community. These green spaces are more important. The value of parks and green space to the quality of life in a community, to the character of our community. It's an area of peace, an area of gathering for children, families, dog owners. Most communities, when they have subdivision plans, require that a set piece of land or a 5% be given to the town to create green space. If we were to analyze this part of Prescott under most subdivision plans, it would fail to meet that objective of that small piece of parkland. Given the number of homes in this area, we wouldn't meet most subdivision plans, so I don't understand removing a park from this subdivision. I talked about my property value and what I hope to do with that home one day, and that it maintains a family neighborhood and a place where I can sell my home to another family. I think the value of my home is also important to the town. That the value of the homes in this area is important to what you're looking to do. I appreciate that there's a housing crisis across the country. It's not as critical right here. I think we have other lands. I think there are other opportunities for council to look at densification, to look at other lots that are available, to work with some of these other owners to find solutions. But that is a quick fix, a one-off cash infusion that I think will damage overall the value and the enjoyment and the quality of life and the community that we together have built here in Prescott. Finally, I'm just concerned, I'm not sure of the timing, if that could be clarified, but for whenever a decision is made tonight, it's concerned that this public period is primarily over Christmas period. It's all over Christmas and New Year, which really eliminates a proper time for public outreach and for any of us to be campaigning door to door or gathering more support. I'm just concerned with that timing over Christmas as well. But there are climate change, quality of life, property value, historical arguments in order to save that park. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, our second unregistered delegation is from Mr. Zeliata.
Sir, Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
I would like to ask a couple questions if I may.
Sure.
Okay. So you did mention that you used to work for the town, and so you were the CAO and clerk from approximately 2003 to 2010?
Correct.
And during that time, the current official plan was passed in 2006, which you would have been fairly instrumental in.
Correct.
And in that plan, I believe this particular property is noted as being residential.
I don't recall that. I thought it was institutional for the school and the town hall.
Okay. So, but it wasn't a park, correct?
I don't think I looked at that property. It's been a park since when I moved here. It's been considered a park and used as a park.
And so then in 2009, I believe the zoning bylaw was passed subsequent to the official plan.
Right.
And I believe it was zoned institutional at that point and not a park.
It's institutional, both the OP and the zoning bylaw.
As part of the town hall.
So, but it's not a park.
As I said at the beginning, for any technicality you may find, but for all uses and intent, it's a park. It's been a park by the community and used as a park by all. The investments by the town to make it a park with lighting, ice rink, garbage cans, And it's maintained at a park level by the Parks Department. It's not maintained as a lot, it's maintained as a park.
Okay. So, but during your time in those two critical documents, you've been not designated as a park.
I don't think it ever dawned on me that anyone would ever think of selling that off.
Okay. And then when did you and how did you become aware of the surplus land designation on tonight's agenda?
I was searching through the agenda online, trying to find out what's going on just lately, so keep an eye on the council.
And did any member of council or staff reach out to you to discuss it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Given the fact that you gave Mr. Armstrong some time to ask some questions there, may I have about a minute to comment?
Comment or question?
Because
We have a full agenda tonight, Mr. McConnell, and we have possibly another delegation.
I have, Mr. Armstrong brought a couple of points that I can reference and put into better context. Because I am the only person in this room that's been here for 4 terms.
Yes, you keep telling us
in the
that.
4th term.
Thank you.
4 terms ago.
I think I'd like to move on.
So you are not interested in hearing the actual evidence?
We just heard the factual evidence. We just heard it. Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Moving on. Does council wish to receive delegation from Mr. Zeliata at this time? If so, I'll need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor McConnell, seconded by Councillor Campbell. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. All right.
Council. Simply put it in terms, Mr. Holler couldn't put it any better. I'm 36 years old. I didn't grow up in this town. I came here in 2011, so I can't say that my roots came here and I played football back here. I would say that anybody that I've worked with in this town that's over, has gray hair or is over 6 years old has very fond, memorable moments of being in that backyard. Now, including ourselves, as a young family or the elderly people that live here, I did look it up, and it is institutional, and we all thought it was a park because it looks like park, has a signage and has the lighting. All we really want to preserve is the only piece of green space we have on the west side of Prescott. I mean, other than that, we have Kelly's Beach to walk down and then the north end. But it would be more for either the elderly people that cannot walk more than 2 kilometers and they have this bit of green space, or for the kids to just even have something to have. Overall, I mean, everybody says, yeah, keep the kids in a park, but parks are always going to get cut if they're not properly used. And in this case, it's institutional. So I could see why it might be put in surplus land. But really, we're just at a crossroads, right? What could be better done for this land altogether? Could be better for Habitat for Humanity or something. I can see the argument for that. There is. I'm not going to lie. There is a need, but there is also a need for people to have some green space for their mental health and their physical health. The last portion I want to say is, being in the Heritage Committee, we always talk about keeping the heritage of the town, and this green space does that because of the trees and the green space. And when people drive around, they don't see intense intensification of buildings, right? We can build all the buildings we want, we're just not gonna build land. So it's just kind of nice to have this little green pocket that we have in the West End. And at the end of the day, all we want to say is, as neighbors, if we can do anything to either fundraise or push forward to maybe designate it as a park, you have my back for it. You have my wife's back for it, I think you have everybody here's back for it. So we can make it a park, and it's not cheap. I know the town has a budget, but I can tell you this, I don't donate money, but if it was to make it a park, you get it from me, just because it'd be something for another generation to enjoy. The last piece of article we want to say is, I found out yesterday, because I was talking to Mr. Holler, I looked at him in the town hall, because I thought he was pulling my leg on a Sunday night, and I looked it up, and yeah, sure enough it was. So all I did after work today is, I just made a simple petition, and I got 54 signatures. Unfortunately, I wobble, I'm slow, I had 3 hours, but that's what I got. I got 54 signatures. Now, I'm sure that if I put some time and effort into it, I'm sure we can do it. I'm sure we can put it in the newspaper, and I'm sure it'll also bring up the case for it. Lou, why should it be a park? Why can it not be 30 townhomes or a 4-story apartment building? I see the argument there too, and I acknowledge that. But at the end of the day, we just want to preserve the last green open space we have in the West End. This is it. This is all we have. Long story short, I made photocopies for everybody here. I'll leave them on the table for the 54 signatures. And the last thing I want to be is I don't want to be nepotism is just get signatures from around the area. So I went around town and got some from there because we have to get consensus from everybody in the area. Why just that area and not worry about the east end? So we just look at it from a point of view that what can we do for the town, not always the town doing for us, right? And if it was something to make it a park and we needed funds for it, come to us, because you know what, you probably would get volunteers and you probably would somebody that would fundraise money. So that's where I'm at with that, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for him? All right, thank you, Louis. Okay, moving on. Item 6.1 is approval of the council minutes. The motion reads that the council minutes dated December 4th, 2023 be accepted as presented. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Quigley, Deputy Mayor Lockett. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Item 7.1 is a sponsorship request from the Prescott Family Health Team. Did everyone have a chance to read the letter from the Family Health Team? Any discussion on that? Councilor Campbell?
It seems that we had given them money already
Last year?
last year, okay, and I wasn't quite sure what their ask is. The same amount, or I didn't see.
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
It just says, since we cannot do it alone, we would like your help, starting with ongoing support for our employee health and wellness event. It will be a small amount to the town, but it will make a huge difference to our team and people, but I didn't see what they asked.
No.
Or what they want it for. Or what they want it for.
Councilor Young?
I was just wondering, is that perhaps something that would fit well in the community grant program?
Yeah, I think that's one thing I made a note of, was we still have some money in the community grant, and maybe they could apply for it there. Also, I know last time we had a collaborative effort from different municipalities, Elizabeth Cardinal as well as Augusta. So maybe we could, you know, if we all work together, we can come up with a significant amount for them. You know, now we only have, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Armstrong, $575 left in our community grant.
Correct, for the 2023 community grant budget, there's $575 that is left unallocated.
Yeah, so that's something that we could look at if they applied for that. Councilor Burton?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Do you have a time frame on if we're going to collaborate with our neighboring municipalities on this initiative? Do we have a time frame on when the other municipalities are meeting to look at the same letter?
I think they did get the same letter.
Okay.
And it did say that last year they did this in the spring of 2023.
Through you, Mayor Shankar, looks like they're planning it for April 2024.
So there's a bit of time there for them to, but they would have to get that request in quickly, eh?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so I think they're looking for commitment now so that they could book the speaker for the spring. So if you want to use a portion of the 2023 community grant allocation, then that's certainly possible. In terms of the other municipalities, I believe all three committed to having a discussion this evening on that. So, you know, the possibility that we would match the average of whatever Elvisburg Cardinal and Augusta provides could be an option as well.
Up to the 575.
Or the 2024 first intake should be released in January, with likely a decision in February. That's at council's discretion, but I'm just not sure if that works with their timelines.
So do we need a motion for that?
It's up to council and how they want to move forward.
I would put the motion out there that we donate the 575 that's left in the 2023 community grant intake and see what the other townships, if they're willing to match it. I mean, I've looked it all up. I mean, they're a nonprofit organization. They qualify for it, right? And the biggest topic we've had is healthcare services in Prescott, right? And they've been a good group to work with, trying to recruit more nurse practitioners, staff, doctors. They've been a good community partner.
Ms. Belkamp, do you have that motion?
Yes, through you, Mayor Schenker. The draft motion I have based on the conversation would read that council approve a donation in the amount of, $575 to be taken from the remaining 2023 community grant.
And would we, through you, Mayor Schenker, would we need to add that, we could encourage them to go through the intake process for 2024? Right, follow the.
Well, for the following year?
Right,
Okay, not for
versus
this.
coming, you know what I mean?
Not double
Versus
dipping.
coming here at the moment, right?
And do you want to put anything in about matching other municipalities?
I mean, it's hard to put that in there, I guess, if.
I would say up to $575 matching the average of contribution or donation from the townships of Augusta and Edwardsburg Cardinal. So that if everyone gives 575, then we all give 575. If one gives nothing and the other gives 1,000, then we give $500.
Fair enough.
Through you to council. Are you including the portion that the Prescott Family Health Team be encouraged to apply for the 2024 grant intake?
Not on the motion, right?
No, well, it's
Okay.
not a motion.
So we'll need a seconder. Any seconder? Councillor Young? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Consent reports. I'm just going to read this. All matters listed under consent reports are to be considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. Should a member wish an alternative action from the proposed recommendation, the member shall request that the item be moved to the applicable section of the agenda. So the recommendation is that all items listed under the consent report section of the agenda be accepted as presented. Can I have a mover? Councillor Burton, seconded. Councillor McConnell. Does anyone want any items removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. No committee reports this evening. Mayor reports. We had a joint services committee meeting last week. It went well. There's budget deliberations that are going to start at the next meeting. Like last year, their budget is looking very high, so hopefully those meetings go better. Item 11 is outside boards, committees, and commissions, so I'm going to provide an opportunity to go around the table, starting with Councillor Kirkby.
Thank you, Mayor Schenker. Not much to report since our last meeting. Tree removal for operations, by the way, is what I'm providing update on. So tree removal, the new swing blades in for the truck, solar lights on the 401 sign. Floor is being reworked at the Elaine Chartrand Community Center due to some water staining. That's on the contractor. We're doing a hydrant review, so looking at replacing 2 hydrants. And one of the last ones is EV chargers are being upgraded from the current free to the $2 fee that we recommended as council in our previous meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Good, thank you. When does that go into effect?
January.
New year, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Councillor Campbell?
We are going to be having a police services board meeting on this Wednesday.
Thank you. Councillor Burton?
Actually, nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Young?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Today, the Prescott BIA reached out to eligible downtown businesses to discuss the purchase of portable accessibility ramps. So the BIA, the estimated cost of the ramps, depending on the step size, is $300 to $450. The BIA has allocated funding to support up to the lesser of $200 or 50% per ramp. So there's a form that you can complete, and it will go to Justin in our Economic Development Department. And we'll work at getting those portable ramps here. One other thing, Grenville CFDC, so Grenville Community Futures Development Corporation have come out with a new product, and it'll be a matching CIP loan program at prime rate for businesses.
Is that for the SEBA loan? Would that be for the SEBA loan? The loan that they got during COVID?
It's to match the CIP.
Oh, sorry, I
Yeah.
heard SEBA.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's another, something else that these businesses can take advantage
Right, we
of.
talked about that. Thank
So
you.
that's what they did.
All right.
That's everything for me.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor McConnell?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I have no committee report, but I would like to comment on a incident that happened at my home this afternoon involving one of our municipal departments. I'm permitted to do so.
Can't wait, let's hear it.
Our microwave caught fire this afternoon.
Your what?
Our microwave caught fire this afternoon.
I thought Nancy didn't like to cook.
Nancy's doing the cooking.
Oh, don't believe it.
No, this microwave actually caught fire. It started smoking, and by the time I realized it wasn't just steam coming out of it, the smoke had turned into gray, and I could hear crackling. So I told Nancy to call the fire department. She did. And shortly after that, flames were evident inside and shooting out of the front of it. But fortunately, and I would recommend that everybody in town have something like this. We had one of those little fire extinguishers on the counter in the kitchen that is a solid dispenser. It's not a liquid. It's made for kitchen fires, electrical fires, that type of thing. I was able to extinguish the fire myself before the fire department got there, but they arrived very quickly. They were very professional. They vented all the smoke out of the place. Robert Gilmer was downstairs inspecting the breaker panel as well. So my great thanks to the fire department. You know, sometimes we have people, and I'm sure we've all heard it say, what in the hell did you build this 6-bay fire? Why did we need something that big? Why do we need to spend $1 million on a fire truck? It's for incidents like this with a quick response. And this could have certainly been far worse if I hadn't had the extinguisher there. But I think it is a credit to this town, this council, that we give the fire department what they require each year as far as equipment and money. They do a lot of training, and they are an invaluable asset to this community. So sincere thanks to the fire department.
Thank you. Yeah, we do have a great fire department, and, you know, these guys drop everything at the sound of an alarm, and they're right there for us. So, yes, thank you, Chief, for doing everything you do. Deputy Mayor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. So I sit on the Board of Health, and if any of you have been following the news, you know that the government has mandated volunteer amalgamation at this point until the end of the year. After the end of the year, it seems like they might do the to picking and the choosing. So the Board of Health is actively pursuing different avenues with amalgamations, and it's a very time-consuming event for them because we're so spread out. So that's been ongoing. We meet again next Wednesday in Smith Falls. Tomorrow, council's been invited to the luncheon at the South Grenville District High School. And we have our BIA meeting tomorrow night. And we've been invited to an event as a thank you for Shakespeare. So that takes us up to Tuesday.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to some staff reports now. So staff report item 12.1 is staff report 94-2023, policies for review. Lindsay Velkamp, Director of Admin, and the clerk will speak to the report. This is for information only. Ms. Velkamp, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Shankar to Council. The report before Council is suggesting the policy working group review the following policies. HR 200-10 dress code, FN 100-01, Council Committee Local Board Members and Employee Travel and Expense Policy. Staff will also be recommending the development of a formal complaint policy and a trespass order policy. These policies provide staff with guidance and a framework for decision-making to ensure consistency in the town. And these policies are the corporate direction adopted by council and implemented by staff on how we interact with the public and govern the use of municipal facilities. The policy working group as approved by council includes Mayor Shankar, Councillor Kirkby, and Councillor Lockett. Staff are recommending the policy working group meet to review the current policies in place, to provide feedback on suggested policies for implementation. And then these updated policies will be brought back to council for final consideration and review. And that's my report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Ms. Velkamp. Any questions for Ms. Velkamp? There was one thing here at the bottom of this staff report that I just want to read out because I really like it. It says, staff will work with neighboring municipalities to create policies that are consistent with both the Township of Augusta and the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, with the ultimate goal of having one policy for all three municipal partners. And I think that's great. It shows collaboration, but also shows when we start doing policies that it's consistent across the board. So thank you for that. Okay. 12.2 is staff report 95-2023, Prescott Pop-Ups Vendor Edition Arbrew Solar Brewery. Recommendation reads that council approve Arbrew Solar Brewery, a licensed alcoholic beverages and wood fire pizza operation, to participate as a seasonal vendor at Prescott's pop-ups for the 2024 operating season. Can I have a mover and seconder for discussion? Councillor Kirkby, Councillor Young. Ms. Valentine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Through you to council. So we've been actively working to build and grow the pop-ups after our first year of a successful operation in 2023. And as part of that approach, we've been marketing far and wide to attract potential new vendors. And we received an expression of interest from a new potential vendor for 2024, being Arbrew Solar Brewery, which, as Mayor Shankar stated, they're a licensed alcoholic beverage and wood-fired pizza operation. They have a existing brick and mortar operation located in Mallory Town, and they've been looking to expand, have been looking for the perfect site to open a satellite operation to complement their existing business. And they came across Prescott and the pop-ups operation this summer. We're very excited about that, thought it would be an ideal home for their satellite location. So we had a meeting a few weeks ago to discuss initial concept. Essentially what they would be proposing would be very similar to their brick and mortar operation. They are a craft brewery, that is their key business. And they also sell wood-fired pizza and another selection of menu items on site. They have a retail store, experiences, and they're a 12-month operation. So they would be very similar to what they're doing there, selling craft brewery for retail, so take-home sale, as well as for consumption on-site along with the wood-fired pizza. So we thought it would be a great complement to the existing pop-up vendors, as well as the marina and the visitor market that we have coming into town. Not to mention local residents. We have a lot of local residents that patronize the pop-ups on a regular basis, and I think this would be a great addition to that. And the ultimate goal, just as a reminder, when it comes to the pop-ups, they're really intended to be a business incubator. So that was what they were set up to be. So the ultimate hope is, once a vendor has a couple, successful seasons, eventually they'll get to the point where they can migrate into a permanent brick and mortar location in the uptown or downtown business districts. So that's ultimately what we would be working for. It would be a craft brewery has been identified as an excellent business opportunity as part of some analysis that's done through economic development and our economic development and tourism strategy that was completed in 2021. So it's certainly been identified as a viable operation. And one of the other perks is they are fully solar, so they would require absolutely no electricity. We currently provide 15 amps of electrical service to our pop-up shed vendors and 50 amps to our food truck vendors. And this vendor would be another food truck vendor that would require absolutely no power. So that would reduce the municipal cost to actually host them. And beyond that, there is very minimal cost. We essentially need to provide them with a plot of land to come in and place their mobile operation and operate for the season through May to October. And as part of this, it's there would be, as far as financial implications go, there would be, again, very minimal, as I said. We essentially need to provide them with a plot of land. There would be some in-kind fees, of course, through the regular administration of the pop-ups. And then we would require approvals through fire building departments as well as the health units as well. So there would be some in-kind expenses generated for those departments, just to ensure that they are fully within their ability to operate and operating safely. And the proposed monthly rental rate for the pop-up vendors is $300. That's for the sheds and the food trucks. We keep the price the same because we aren't providing a structure for the food truck operators, but we are providing more power. So it essentially balances out at the end of the day. And that's the concept has been included with a bit of an executive summary proposal here from the operator. Phil O'Depp is the president, and as you can see here from his proposal, he's very excited to come to Prescott. And he's included a few preliminary concepts just to really give a sense of what it could look and feel like when it is operational. So we haven't confirmed what it would look like. He's leaning more towards the first two, which would be like a converted seed can unit.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to entertain any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valentine. Any questions for Ms. Valentine? Councilor McConnell?
Thanks, Mayor Shankar. The alcohol thing is what intrigues me. Obviously, there's not going to be a brewery on site. He's brewing in Mallorytown, selling alcohol in Prescott. I don't know if this is part of your mandate or not, but have you looked into a liquor license? Is that even possible?
Yes, that would all be part of the requirements as well. And I sincerely apologize if I neglected to note that in my report. That would be one of the most critical requirements. It is possible. They have done that preliminary investigation. It would be very similar to any other licensed business. I would say a good example of this would be there are some of those pop-up operations along the Rideau Canal that are operated by the NAC. So I think that would be a really good example of what we'd be talking about. I'd be happy to provide additional information to council, examples of other operations, but they've certainly already begun that investigation just to make sure it was viable before they came knocking on our door.
But we don't know, or they don't know whether it actually is or not.
It is in their discussions with AGCO, yes, they simply need to apply for the permit. And they would need the endorsement of the municipality. So as part of that, that's also part and parcel of the rationale for bringing this report before council, because it does require additional approvals and endorsements.
I say thank you.
Councillor Campbell?
Through you, Ms. Shankar. So they'd be paying $300 a month? Okay. And again, infrastructure, I always think this, but will the town be providing more picnic tables and areas where you're gonna eat your pizza and drink your beer?
So they will provide their own seating area. They would have to as part of their licensed operation. It would still have to be a contained operation for the consumption of the alcohol. So they would provide their own seating. It would essentially be a mini restaurant operating within the pop-ups. And then the town would still continue to provide our own public seating, which we hope to grow on an annual basis. We have 5 octagon tables down there and 12 Adirondack chairs with fire pits. And we would just hope to continue to grow that as the seasons progress.
So when they buy their beer, they sit at their
Yes.
table?
And consume it within the licensed area operated by our group.
Okay, and they will be in charge of making sure that.
Absolutely. As the license holder, they would be responsible for maintaining all of the AGCO requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Blockett?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Shankar. So this is a tough one for me, actually. I get the tourism part. I get the, let's add to the pop-ups, but we have a lot of places in town that sell pizza, and actually quite a few that sell beer. And they pay taxes, and they pay heat and hydro and water. And I'm concerned about them because they're here for 12 months of the year. And somebody is allowed to come in and basically cut into their business. Competition is good if it's on an equal playing field for me. And I'm just not sure that is an equal playing field for a business that already sells what they're gonna have.
And I can certainly appreciate your comments, Councillor Lockett. It's something that we've certainly given a lot of thought to as well. And the fact that it is to a certain extent creating competition for existing operators. We looked at it in a number of different ways. One of them being that it is different in the sense that it's a craft brewery. It's bringing something different to the community that potentially could also benefit local operators because it would provide them with a local craft brewery cider option to sell, which at this given moment really is not being sold by any of our local restaurants. There is no one that is serving a craft brewery. There's no one serving Windmill. There's no one serving Arbor. There's no one serving some of the other outlying areas. And that's something that we're really trying to encourage and facilitate through something like this, that it could actually be a really good partnership for some of those existing operators. The other piece to it is we are actually charging a lot more per square foot when you consider it and providing a lot less amenities for the actual operator themselves. And it is a seasonal operation. So there's really only a limited window where you can generate an income. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is have it be a business development venture where eventually we would get that business hopefully to relocate into a permanent full-time brick and mortar. And, I certainly, you can look at it from many ways. Those are just a few factors that we considered as part of our, when we were looking at this. But I certainly recognize that it could be seen as a concern, but I think if you look at what's happened in the last 6 months with some of the new restaurants that have opened, all of a sudden our restaurant community is really elevating their game. And that is your existing players and your new players. And I think everyone is doing better because of that. And people are excited to re-experience our local restaurants. And I think, that to that standpoint, there is nothing better than a little bit of competition, yes. But I do think from the perspective of it is something different. And it is wood-fired pizza, which I know some people may say pizza is pizza, but it's not. And the loss of the Turkish restaurant and the wood-fired pizza option in that community has created a big gap for a lot of residents. And I still continue to hear from people that they want a wood-fired pizza operation back in this community. That would be my response. But I do appreciate your comment.
Thank you. Councillor Young?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. So I went to the Economic Summit in Kempville, and food and drink is like number one for what people are looking for, that experience. And to me, this would be a unique experience. And you don't have a lot of room for outdoor cafes in Prescott, unfortunately. But with the backdrop of the marina, the river, the pop-ups themselves, I think it would be an attraction. And I think it would be great to try it out for at least 1 year and see how it goes. And I understand about other businesses with brick and mortar as well. But I think this would be unique because, like you said, it's only their craft beer. And I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Burton and Councillor Kirkby.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I think this is a fabulous idea. I've been to the Art Brew in Mallorytown, and it's an experience. It is an experience. You know, you can get a flight and you can get wood-fired pizzas to die for. It's definitely going to draw a different crowd who wants that experience, because not everybody wants that experience. In the wintertime, they have igloos outside. And you can order that and sit in the little igloo, and I haven't done that yet, but I'm a fair weather person myself, so. But anyways, I think this is a great addition, and to sit, if he creates the patio up on top, what a fabulous get together with a couple friends and have a wood-fired pizza and a couple of their specialty beverages, and yeah, the view is spectacular. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. And Councillor Kirkby.
Through you, Mayor Shankar. I had the same concerns as Councillor Lockett. I actually reached out to Councillor Lockett and Councillor Young just to say, how I kind of felt like it's a direct competition with the brick and mortar facilities we have currently in town. I have a couple questions, and I'll be honest, I thought I had it correct. I don't. So the license fee for a chip truck in Prescott, call it a mobile food truck, is that the same price as what these folks would be paying?
No, that is a totally separate bylaw, and essentially that is waived for those that are participating in the pop-ups.
Yep.
What they're paying, and Matthew, I will have to defer to you for the fee. I believe it's $350, but that entitles them to a full year to operate anywhere they want, on an unlimited number of occasions, as long as they have approval from the property owner. So the Beaver Tails would be a prime example of a vendor that has paid that one-time annual fee, which then gives them the ability to operate anywhere they choose on any number of occasions, as long as they have approval.
Isn't there a different fee, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's on town property? So I guess I'll ask the question, is the current Gelato truck and the chip truck paying the same amount?
They are paying the
That-
$300 a month,
$300?
yeah. So that would be significantly more than the bylaw fee for a mobile, it would be the mobile food truck
Yeah.
operator
Yeah.
bylaw. And that would be anyone who wants to operate out of the pop-up space.
I think it's a good draw. I do wonder about the wood fire scent, to be honest, with the marina. The possibility of ash or ambers directed towards the marina or the gas pumps that are down there. It would have to be a choiceful location, right? Not to impact the boaters that frequent that land also. But it's a tough one for me because, as Councillor Lockett said, I feel like, we've had a lot of investment downtown from people providing pizza and beer in the last year. I almost feel like this here is introducing competition to them that we could possibly say doesn't fit.
I don't see what the difference would be if they rented a space, a brick and mortar space, so.
If they were to go brick and mortar?
Right.
Paying more.
They'd be paying a bit more,
Well, I don't know if they'd be paying.
be a bit of more of an investment in the town.
Yep, but they might evolve to that too, right? I think it's worth a shot. We try it for a season, and we can always reevaluate, or they can reevaluate too.
And from, if I can, just to address your location concern, we were very mindful of that, and we have actually identified the furthest east location for the brewery to go. So it would be east of the gelato truck. That would be the area that we've identified for it to locate. They were very happy with that. And the wood-fired pizza oven is very much a self-contained unit. From what I've seen, we would of course confirm that for the benefit of the fire department and any other approval authorities. But it is very much self-contained. It doesn't have an ability to actually generate live embers. It would be smoke only that would, and again, to your point, there's certainly an odor factor with that that would need to be taken into consideration as well. But we would be very mindful of keeping it as distant as we possibly could from any neighboring residents, boaters, properties.
Thank you.
Follow up?
Yeah, one more. I wanted to go on to ask, what are their hours of business gonna be? Are they gonna be this like Thursday night to Sunday or?
Essentially, yeah, so it would be Thursday to Saturday. We were anticipating would be their key operating hours. We are requesting everyone, that was the minimum this year. For 2024, we are requesting Wednesday to Sunday, likely. And again, because the food operators do tend to operate extended hours outside of the pop-up shops, they tend to open generally from 11 a.m. till 9 p.m. So that's what I would anticipate at most, Thursday to Sunday, 11 to 9.
And the last part of the question was, so washrooms, like if they were in a regular business, they would have to follow health regulations and have a washroom. So are we assuming they're going to use the marina or are we going to have portable?
We will have portable washrooms on site again this year. That doesn't negate their requirement to have their own hand washing facilities, things of that nature to provide for their own sanitary food prep, but we would be providing public washrooms through the porta potties. Suggesting that we would add more next year because we are anticipating the pop-ups to be busier and the one porta potty certainly was not enough. And we try to avoid creating any sort of additional demand on the marina. That's, the last place that we would send people to use the washroom facilities. Ideally, we try to get them to use the porta potties. And if I also can, just in, speaking now that we're back again, in the research and the surveys and a lot of the statistics that we've been analyzing this year, we are really pleasantly surprised to see the migration that happens from the pop-ups to the downtown and the uptown business communities. This is not an island. It really is not. And people that come off, at most, it's the calling card. It's the reason that people stop and slow down and stop, but that's certainly not the first and only place they go. They migrate from the pop-ups to the downtown, to the waterfront, because it gives them an opportunity to experience and open their eyes and see all these other things that they probably would have missed had they kept on going through the downtown. So it really is a gateway and a bit of a calling card for the community. And we are certainly seeing a lot of migration from those visitors to all those outlying areas of town.
Thank you, Ms. Valentine. One sec.
Oh,
Do you have another question?
Well, I did. Yes, thank you. Not so much a question as a comment. Again, I was listening to my esteemed colleague next door here, and I was just thinking about something. Anytime I've participated in the community-wide cleanup, I've always done north of the tracks. And apologies, I know you're not
I know where you're
doing
going
it,
with this.
but the most common garbage that I pick up in those things are Tim Hortons and McDonald's cups. And I'm just leery of seeing the riverfront littered with red Solo cups from alcohol consumption at a at a patio in the pop-ups. I mean, yeah, you may have a roped off area where they're supposed to stay with their alcohol, but who's gonna police it? Are we gonna have our bylaw people down there more often because we have more complaints? Are we gonna have people coming into the marina that are gonna want to leave with the craft breweries? And two, I tend to agree with Ruth. We've had 3 new restaurants just this summer open in the downtown, all serving alcohol. One of them has an outdoor patio, which is nice. The other 2 don't. Boomers, which is another restaurant that has served alcohol for many years, has been closed for many years. And can't remember who it was I was talking to just in the last day or so, and they indicated that they thought that with the prevalence of new restaurants, that Boomers would never open again. What was gonna happen to the brick and mortar, so to speak? Dana's right. The whole idea of the pop-ups was to give people kind of a hand up, a foot up, whatever you want to call it. And I admit I've been places traveling where I have encountered this type of thing and enjoyed it. I'm not inclined to go along with it here. I think got enough people invest in brick and mortar that are willing to do so. And I would love to see a craft brewery in town, but I would love to see a craft brewery in town, not just somebody bringing the beer in and selling it.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell?
Through you, Mayor Shankar, just smoke, I think you'll really have to check the winds, figure out which way, because you might be also blowing smoke into all the other pop-up locations based on where it's located. I can't picture how much smoke there's gonna be, but that's just my comment.
That was part of the reason that we actually selected the east location, because the winds do primarily come from the west. So it would blow most of any odor into the open waterfront parkland. And just quickly, if I can address Councillor McConnell's comment, from that standpoint, that simply cannot and will not happen when it comes to people taking alcohol out of the site. The operator is never going to jeopardize the license that they hold for their very successful business in Mallorytown to allow someone to walk out of there with a solo cup. Simply will not happen. And they have been extremely vocal about that from during all of our interactions to date. And we express that concern knowing that it could be a potential concern. And we certainly do not want people intoxicated walking along the waterfront with open alcohol. And we are also there on site, I would say probably 90% of the time that those pop-ups are open, and we would be the first to address that if it ever became an issue.
Thank you, Ms. Valentine. Oh my God. Last one.
For you, Mayor Shankar. Last question. Dana, just, is there set times and can we stick to them set times? So i.e., if it's supposed to be open at 11 and it's supposed to be closed at 7, right, or 8, that we can be assured that that's the times they're operating, and we're not gonna come back in the summer and say, well, we'd like to extend them to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, because I'll be honest, I'd be more inclined to accept it, but if it's not in a full gauntlet of competition with the brick and mortar, and I'm just, the current time for them is 11 to.
So for the retail vendors, next year, we're gonna be a bit more adamant in this requirement. We were a little bit flexible this year. It was very much a new operation. We were doing everything we could to attract interest in new vendors. So there will be set hours this year. It will be 11 to 7. That is the minimum. Food-related vendors will have the option to extend beyond that. And we were anticipating 9 p.m. And those were the hours that we would expect vendors to operate to and to generally close at. And the same would go for our brew. If they came forward and said, hey, we had a different expectation, we would bring that back to council before those pop-ups ever launch for the season. This is certainly not something that once those hours are set, they do not change. And that was one of, I think, the biggest learning lessons that we had from last year, is we have to be very adamant about those hours and we have to enforce them. And we were, yes, a little bit flexible last year because we were trying to attract new vendors, but I think as these continue to grow, we have that ability to be a little bit more restrictive and hold those policies to account.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to call the question. Does anyone want me to read the motion again? Ms. Campbell? Yes?
Please.
The council approved Arbor Solar Brewery, a licensed alcoholic beverages and wood fire pizza operation, to participate as a seasonal vendor at Prescott's pop-ups for the 2024 operating season. We already have mover and seconder. And call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Hearing. Thank you, Ms. Valentine. Very good. All right, moving on. 12.3 is for information only. Staff report 96-2023, living wage employer. Matthew, you're going to speak to this?
Very much, Mr. Mayor. So on September 18th, there was a resolution from the town of Grimsby that talked about the living wage, and we were asked to bring back a little bit more information on becoming a living wage employer. So in the package this evening, there is a large document from Ontario Living Wage, and exactly how they go about doing it, what is a living wage, why is it necessary, those types of things. So for this area, for Eastern Ontario, which Prescott's part of, the most current living wage amount is $20.60 per hour. All of our full-time unionized and non-unionized staff are in excess of that amount. Some of our seasonal and part-time staff, or most of them, earn less than $20.60 an hour. So we could move forward with certification if we so chose. That being said, we don't currently qualify from the part-time perspective, but we can still follow the guiding principle and the concepts, even if we don't become certified. So when we go into next year, we will be taking a look at pay equity, as well as some other concepts that we have to work through. 2025 is an evaluation or a contract year for our unionized staff. And so all of those things, as we work throughout 2024, are things that we would look at and determine what the implication of a living wage has on some of those rates and rates of pay. So just wanted to provide the information this evening, and more than happy to answer any questions that might be.
Councillor Young?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I just have a comment, like, as community leaders, that we see the impact that wages have on budgets, record inflation, housing crisis, food insecurities. I think it's something for $200, if we could be known as a living wage employer, I think it would let our taxpayers know that, we're doing our part. And it might motivate other employers in the community to also become a living wage employer. And I think now, like, labor has evolved. It used to be like a line item, we have to pay our employees this much, but now so many employers have recognized the importance of employees to their success. And I personally would like to see us be certified.
Thank you. Councillor McConnell?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. It's not the $200. It's the impact that changing to move towards this would cost us, as far as pay scale goes. I think the very last sentence here is very well worded and says it for me. I'll read it if I may. The implications of moving towards a living wage for part-time and seasonal staff could be explored in 2024 to better understand the impact, both financially and from a pay equity perspective. In other words, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, what you're saying is, as you're doing the budget for next year and as you're looking at wages for next year, if you take this into consideration, you can give us an idea what the impact would be on a yearly basis for that change. Because it may be that in adopting this, we would then have to raise the pay of people who are getting over 2024, well, over the minimum amount to keep them at the proper distance that has already been decided they should be from each other. I know that sounds a little wonky there, but I think the implication here that, at least the way I read it, is that Matthew is not recommending that we jump in at the $200, that we allow him to explore this as he goes through the budget and give us a reasonable explanation of how it would affect us. Am I right there, Matthew?
That's correct.
So I would suggest that we accept it for information purposes with a view to looking at implementing it if possible once we receive better information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? Ms. Young, does that sound agreeable to you? Or do you want to put a motion forward?
If the council decides that they want to wait and look at it next year, that's fine.
Thank you for bringing that forward. Okay, we're going to move on to 12.4 is the 2024 budget, health services and social services overview. Matthew Armstrong, you can speak to this.
Mr. Mayor, so I'm just going to bring up the presentation. So this evening, we're going to be talking about the health and social services budget. So we're going to go through the timelines, the health services, and then finally the social services. So from a timeline perspective, we're at December 11th, and our next meeting will be January 8th, where we discuss administrative and protective services. So from a public or from a health services perspective, well, there's three budgets in this area. One is for the health unit, for the Leeds, Granville, and Lanark Health Unit. The other is for paramedic services, which is provided by the United Counties and the joint services. And finally, the last part is the cemetery. So as mentioned, the health unit provides kind of the public health side. Municipalities in the catchment area of Lanark, Leeds, and Grenville are required to cost share in the mandatory programs. And the proportional allocation between municipalities is based on the most recent census population. So for 2024, this is the first time they're going to be using the 2021 census data. So for us, it did have an impact of decreasing the overall budget because our proportional share of the population of the total of Lanark, Leeds, and Grenville decreased. So when we take a look at paramedic services, it's provided by the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. I did provide the cost allocation between the four groups that participate. The United Counties does on behalf of all of their lower tier municipalities, and then Prescott, Gananoque, and Brockville as single tier municipalities contribute to a proportional share. And Mayor Shankar sits on the joint services. Finally, Prescott Cemetery, Sandy Hill Cemetery, is owned by virtue of a trust, and that was established in the will of Edward Jessup. And then in 2011, it was turned over to the town of Prescott for management. In 2016, there was a bylaw passed to establish the Board of Management, and the town provides a $14,000 yearly amount towards operating to defray some of the costs of operations and maintenance. Councillor McConnell is the member that sits on the Prescott Cemetery Board. And new for this year, so normally we would just put in the 14,000, but because we take care of all their books and that sort of thing, then we include all of their revenue and expenditure in that. So as part of an update for this year's, I thought I would put all the revenue and the expense and not just the 14,000. And so that way it becomes a little bit more clear in how we go about doing that. There is no bottom line impact. Still, it's a net 14,000 for the town. So when we take a look at public health is going down by about $25,000. That's as per the allocation notice for 2024. And so we're happy to see that is decreasing from 89,000 to about 64. Paramedics, we're assuming an 8% increase of budget over budget. And so that increases by 23,000. And while the cemetery is going up by 16,000, there'll be revenue to offset that as well. So all told for this area, it's up by 3.7% or about 14,000, or it's pretty much even when you take in the additional revenue from the cemetery. Next, we have health services. So we have the Ontario Works, which is provided by the United Counties, St. Lawrence Lodge, which the municipality supports from an operational and capital perspective, Children's Services, which is done by the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, and Community Housing by the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. So for the Ontario Works program, you can see that it's allocated 50% based on caseload and 50% based on weighted property assessment. So the 2023 allocation is shown for just comparison. We have St. Lawrence Lodge. It's a very similar to how Joint Services, the United Counties provides a certain amount, and then tier municipalities. So in 2022, our allocation was 183,000. In 2023, it went up by about 10% to 203,000. And for 2024, we've been notified that the allocation is 379,000. Obviously, that's a number that is unsustainable. It's a $176,000 increase, or about 86%. Overall, the allocation for a new municipal share is up 64%. But because there's a 5-year rolling average for number of resident days that are attributed to each municipality, Prescott raised from 7.5% in 2023 to 8.5% in 2024. And that's the differential between the 64 and the 86. So we also provide debt funding of $220,000 that is offset by provincial funding of $8,500 per year. Those, there's two separate debenture amounts. At the end of 2024, one will be fully paid. At the end of 2025, the second one will be fully paid. That being said, neither of them will be fully paid in 2024, so we're still on the hook for the whole $160,000 net amount for debt payments in this year. And Councillor Burton sits on the St. Lawrence Lodge Committee of Management. The United Counties for Children's Services, again, 50% caseload, 50% weighted assessment, and then you see exactly how it breaks down there for the 2023 year. And then when we get to community housing, it's based on weighted property assessment. So all told, for Ontario Works, again, we're assuming 8% budget over budget from 2023 to 2024, which amounts to about $10,000 more. St. Lawrence Lodge, just shy of 176,000. Children's Services up by about 3,500, and then community housing up by about 12,000. So all told, up by about 201,000 or 26.2%, the vast majority of which is St. Lawrence Lodge. So just overall, when we put these two budgets together, so the 2023 budget was 1.16 million. We're going to be very close to being on budget, within $5,000. And that's based on the projection at the end of October from the United Counties, which makes up a good portion of that budget. And then the 2024 budget obviously is going to just shy of 1.4 million. And to just equate what that $260,000 means, about a 1% property tax increase equates to about $60,000 in additional revenue. So a total of 18.6 in additional costs just in this particular area.
Equivalent to almost 4% in property tax.
Correct. So the next budget areas that we'll be looking at is administrative and protective services. But just want to give a highlight of where we are on the first two budgets. Certainly this is the first time we've ever seen an increase of this magnitude. And we have, the four municipalities, the treasurers have requested a meeting with St. Lawrence Lodge to review the budget and get some additional information. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Armstrong? I noted Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. As you noted, I'm the representative on the cemetery board. I'm curious where you're gonna come up with $16,000 of revenue over what we had this year.
So each of the last 4 years, the total revenue has been somewhere in the neighborhood of 28 to 32,000 per year. And that's based on the interments and lot sales that have been per year.
So where's that money going?
So it goes into the bank account and we record it as such. And then we also record it as part of the financial statements. It's just from a budgeting perspective, we've only ever put in the $14,000 as net contribution. But we always bring in all of the revenue and all of the expenses at year end. So it's one of the things that causes a variance at year end by not including the total amount in the budget. So I thought I would fix that this year and show the whole amount.
So you're saying it's essentially an accounting practice, not actual dollars that are changing from year to the next?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else for? Thank you, Matthew. Hopefully that meeting the treasurers have, I know that the heads of council have requested a meeting as well with St. Lawrence Lodge because an 86% increase is just ridiculous. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to resolutions. 13.1 is board and committee appointments for 2024. I have a recommendation that reads that council approve the following appointments to boards and committees for 2024. Committee of Adjustment, Lori Bonzal, Jim Hutton, Daniel Slender, Craig Warden, and Louis Ziliata. Planning Advisory Committee, Leanne Burton, Jason Copeland, James Hutchinson, Lori Shankar, Tracy Young. Prescott Cemetery Board of Management, Trevor Barry, Donald Gibson, Lee McConnell, Elaine McCurry, and Ray Young. Prescott Heritage Committee, Karen Hume, Lee McConnell, Joan Rupert Barkley, Ray Young, Louis Zeliata. Prescott Public Library Board, Peggy Arcand, Leanne Burton, Pat Lemare, Elaine McCurry, and Randy Pellia. Prescott Police Services Board, Mary Campbell, Jeffrey Loshway, Rob Samilio, and Gory Shankar. Walker House, Leanne Burton, Sharon Flood, Maria McKibben, Pat Marshall, Irene Mueller, Joanne Savage, Sharon Steen, and Tom Van Duzen. Can I have a mover and seconder for discussion? Councillor Kirkby, Councillor Burton, any discussion on those board appointments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. 13.2 is notice of surplus land located behind Town Hall. I have a recommendation that reads that council declare the vacant property located behind Town Hall as surplus to the needs of the town of Prescott, and that staff be directed to proceed with the notice provisions of bylaw 16-1995, period ending at 4 p.m. on January 26, 2024. Can I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Kirkby, seconded by Councillor Burton. Any discussion on this item? Councillor McConnell.
Thank you very much, Mayor Shankar. What I was going to contribute before, but I wasn't given the opportunity to do so, was that this is not the first time since I've been sitting around this table that this subject has come up. And 4 terms ago, the subject was risen again, or was risen for the first time, at least since I've been on council. It was brought forth by a member of staff who was one of 2 people who was responsible for economic development at the time. That would be Craig Cullen. was brought forward in the forth of a map of town, which highlighted all of the town-owned properties within the borders of the town. And we discussed each one of them, whether we felt the zoning was proper, whether we wanted to change it, what we felt down the road we might like to do with it. One of the properties that was discussed was the property in question here, which is the property which is improperly labeled as vacant real property. And it was decided by discussion and vote of council that that was to be untouched. It was to remain exactly what it was, which is institutional and has been institutional since 1893, give or take a year or so. As institutional, it started off being purchased, or this is a high school. A high school was built on the south part of the property, and the north part of the property, which is the part which is in discussion here, was used for the athletic endeavors of that school. You have a school, you have a playground, you have an area where you play baseball, run races, do whatever. When that school was replaced in the 1930s with this building, the school board of the time retained that property for the same usage. And when the school board divested themselves of the property in the early 60s, town council of the day decided to do the same thing. And it's been kept for recreational purposes for the town ever since. It has been redone, and a number of times trees have been planted. It's been resculpted to accept a arena, or not an arena, but a rink. Lighting has been added for evening use. Garbage cans been put out, signage has been listed. If you happen to have walked by here a couple of days ago when there was a very slight snow in the backyard, you would have seen that the backyard was covered with paw prints and footprints from people. You don't have paw prints and you don't have footprints on a vacant, unused piece of property. This property has been well used since the early 1890s, continues to be. It's zoned institutional. In our official plan, it's zoned institutional, and it has always been one piece of property. It is not a vacant piece of property. It is a piece of property that happens to have a building on one portion of it, and that's where we're sitting today. The other portion of this property is not vacant. It is used as a neighborhood park, just the same as Sarah Spencer Park is used for a park in Macaulay Gardens. It's used like the park in the east end of town and in the north end of town as well. I think, in my opinion, that this council has been scared, startled, whatever, by Doug Ford and his build housing, build it anywhere, build as much as you can, build as quick as you can. That's been shown to be a bad idea when he flip-flopped on the Greenbelt in Toronto, and it was proven that that property really wasn't needed by the province for housing. It doesn't take a great deal of imagination to understand that if this property is declared surplus, it's going to be bought by somebody, and what's going to happen to it, it's going to be made into residential. That's just
Mr. McConnell?
Yes, sir.
Can we try and keep it to 5 minutes? You're at 5 minutes now, so can you wrap it up?
Well, thank you for giving me the extra time, but what I was going to say in addition is that in the past 2 years, and 4 members of this council wouldn't have been here for that because it happened at the end of last term, we have sold large pieces of property north of the railroad tracks within the town limits and south of the railroad tracks within the town limits. Those pieces of property were for exclusively housing and there will be hundreds of residences built within those two pieces of property. This evening, Augusta Township is having a meeting in regards to the property immediately to the west of the town, which is largely going to go residential as well. It is very foolish to take a piece of property that has an extensive history as neighborhood, park, recreation, play area, and just slap housing on it. It gives no thought to the local usage. It gives no thought to what is coming down the road in this area. And on top of that, as a member of the Heritage Committee for the past 2 terms, I'm personally insulted that the Heritage Committee has not been asked for an opinion on this. That is what the Heritage Committee is for, to advise council on matters of heritage. And as the oldest piece of commercial real estate that we have had that's been maintained in the same state that we got it, it certainly needs to be addressed to the Heritage Committee. I've got lots more I could say, but thank you for the extra time. I will hold it at that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I wanted to clarify that I voted against the speakers tonight because, to be perfectly honest, I feel like we've been blindsided. This is the first time this has come to council. We have had no, this is the first time it's in an open session, this has come to council. And we have had, I don't know if what they're saying is true or not true because there's conflicting information. So I think it was unfortunate that at least 12 people got to come and lay out everything that they want to say, and we have no background on what we're supposed to listen to. So that's why I voted against it, because I think we've been blindsided and actually maybe a little bullied. Because I have a hard time believing that 12 or 14 people go on our website to see what our agenda is every week.
Councilor Burton.
Thank you. And I feel the same, Councilor Lockett. The people sitting in the audience are respected citizens. They know the process of council as well and how to put in a delegation. You know, I do feel blindsided tonight. And, right, do they have a right to speak? Absolutely. Absolutely, right? But there's a process, right? There's a process. And unfortunately, that process was not followed this evening. And it was the will of council to let them talk, which was good. But I voted against it because I felt blindsided as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Burton. Councilor Kirkby?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Shankar. I just want to be clear on tonight's vote is we're declaring the land surplus. It doesn't mean that we're selling it tomorrow. What it does is allows us to explore, right? I've heard some different concerns come out. I will just give a bit of history. I also grew up in Prescott. I live just 1 block down on Henry, 334. I've spent a lot of time up in this neighborhood. I played a bit back here. I do a regular drive through Prescott. To us, that was, you know, just a vacant field that we would come up and play in the odd time. We spent a lot more time at Kelly's Beach on the road in Henry Street playing ball hockey. I played baseball, I played hockey, I played a lot of sports. And that was never really a field that we played excessively at. I can say in the last 3 years, I do quite the circuit of town. I never have observed, I was thinking of this today, anybody out there since the rink was there in the backyard. And when the rink was there, I came down a few times, it was never shoveled. I mean, it was shoveled a bit, but I mean, when it snowed, right? You know, there was quite a bit of snow on it. It just wasn't an ideal location, in my opinion, back then for an outdoor rink. One thing I'll say is when I got voted in, definitely was adding housing to Prescott, right? And, you know, I'm open to exploring stuff, right? But I feel like there's probably some misinformation that has been shared. And I think it's a little, I just want to be clear, what happens tonight, if it's declared surplus, Matthew, can you explain that just for everyone in the room?
So, thank you very much.
Thank you for putting you on the spot there.
So really, you're absolutely right. It's declaring it surplus to the needs of the town. And it starts a comment period. And to a comment earlier, I think the comment period is, in the bylaw, is required not to be nearly as long as the one that we're providing. Because we looked at the fact that we're at the Christmas break, things like that, and we actually extended it all the way to January 26th. That was to provide more than a month. We're basically at 6 weeks at this point for any public comment. And then it would also allow the opportunity for us to report back any of those public comments to council at the first meeting in February. You're also exactly right that this does not require us or the town to sell the property. It's to entertain options as council sees fit. And certainly there's many more decisions that need to be made and council and votes to be had before anything would be approved and move forward. So that's a little bit of the information in a nutshell, and hopefully I addressed that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I have one more?
One more, sure.
Just one more. So I went through our strategic plan, which is also in this package, and it clearly says that we are to explore effective, creative residential land use. And to me, that's what we're doing. We're exploring. It also goes on to say we're to explore housing options. Like Councillor Kirkby said, it doesn't mean we're going to sell it. And I heard from the floor that if it's a park, then the community is going to fundraise and turn it into a park. So we're exploring. That's all I understand that we're doing.
And we're following proper procedure, right? I mean, that's the main thing. That's one of the reasons why delegations have to come in a week before. If they don't, we have a supplementary bylaw that states we can vote on it. So that's why. Nordstrom?
I did want to also address Councillor McConnell's mention of the Heritage Committee. I do believe he brought this up at a meeting 2 meetings ago, and the conversation at that committee meeting was that it doesn't merit review, and they haven't brought it back to date.
Sorry, Councillor McConnell brought this up at a Heritage meeting?
He did.
2 weeks ago?
No, 2 meetings ago, so I believe it was in October.
So that's before open session?
Correct.
Is that correct, Mr. McConnell?
I referenced it at a Heritage Committee meeting, and I think we have one other member of the Heritage Committee here.
I think that's a breach of code of conduct then.
What's that?
You mentioning this law at the Heritage meeting 2 months ago.
No, I mentioned the property, that it was within, I think, 6 years or 7 years of being a century building. And
Sorry, what's a century building? This building?
it was built in 1930. This is 1923.
It's 2020.
2023.
2020. It's approaching 100 years. The property has been in the possession of the town through the school board and the town for well over 100 years. And my point was, and this is part of the job of the Heritage Committee, if we feel that there are properties that warrant investigation, delegation, that it is up to the Heritage Committee to look into them and then make recommendations to council. There was nothing said about any, as a matter of fact, I don't think it was before council at that point. I abandoned that, but nothing was.
It's just a coincidence then that you happened to mention that 2 meetings ago?
No, it wasn't a coincidence at all. It was, we were sitting here in this very room. We were discussing, we're doing a list which has been mandated by the provincial government of all the houses we have that are listed, and then we either have to recommend to council that they be officially named or taken off the list. we also have the ability to add any properties to that list if we so desire. This property being very close to 100 years old, being a seat of our local government, being a former high school and the site of another high school before that, certainly fits within the parameters of being listed or
7
named.
years from now.
Pardon me?
7 years from now, perhaps.
Not necessary. We have buildings, it doesn't have to be 100 years old to be, it has to be of interest, historical interest. Last term or 2 terms ago, Councillor Lossinger wanted to list a neighborhood that was built in the 60s because it was an example of a type of architecture that went on at that time, and that wasn't anywhere near 100 years old. Council declined to do so, and I agree with that.
So just for the record then, in open session,
Yes,
2 meetings ago with the Heritage Committee.
2 or 3.
You had an inquiry about this property.
Did not have an inquiry about this property.
What did you have?
I made a suggestion that this property could be considered for listing, for heritage listing, yes. And no action was taken on that. We are busy doing the list that we have now. My expectation is, as we reach the end of that list, and it's just my expectation, somebody else on may have a different idea, that we would then look to see whether there are any other local properties that should be added and discussed.
Anyone else before I call the question? Councillor Campbell?
I don't know how many people have read our official plan, but I actually have. So just want to read a few things that it talks about. One of the values is to conserve heritage and the sense of our town, and that social, historical, and architectural heritage will be a big, important identity for the town of Prescott. There's also no public or private works shall be undertaken that does not conform to the official plan policies. And I did read, although I don't have it written here, is that, oh, maybe here it is. Neighborhood character studies for proposed intensification should be undertaken. So they would study a neighborhood to see if this is a proper place for it to be intensified. Higher density, such as apartments, should be focused in the downtown core designation. I'm not sure if this is downtown. Ensure development within existing parks and recreation areas are consistent with Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
Okay.
Okay.
Which part of that pertains to this discussion?
Oh, the intensification, that they would have to do a neighborhood study to determine.
Okay, very good. Any further questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't, but given Mr. Armstrong's comments over there, just about the comment that I made at the Heritage meeting, is town council, and we are town council, intending to ask for guidance on this particular property from the Heritage Committee, or are we going to do something that we would not normally do, and that is not seek guidance from our Heritage Committee in regards to a heritage piece of property and its disposition? I think that's a question for council.
For council. Has this property been designated heritage?
No, it hasn't been.
Okay, then I don't think it's this question for council.
It's a question of whether council is going to ask the Heritage Committee give it some advice now.
And you're on the Heritage Committee?
As a matter of fact, I am. I don't believe that the Heritage Committee needs a request from council to offer it first. I stand to be corrected on that, but I don't believe that that's the case.
I don't think to declare a piece of property surplus, we need to ask the advice of the Heritage Committee. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Armstrong.
Certainly the bylaw doesn't speak to it. This is neither a listed nor designated property. And I certainly didn't hear a burning desire to review it in the conversation at the Heritage Committee.
And you're in the room for those meetings as well?
That's correct.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to call the question then. I'm going to read the motion once again. Council declare the vacant real property located behind Town Hall as surplus to the needs of the town of Prescott, and that staff be directed to proceed with the notice provisions of bylaw 16-1995 for a period ending at 4 p.m. on January 26, 2024. Favor? Opposed? It carries.
For clarification,
One.
what we just voted on, there is a date there, January 26th. The vote that we took tonight is not the final disposition, is it? It sets this period from now until January 26th for input, and then what happens? Could you have somebody clarify that?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the 26th at 4 p.m. we'll collect any public input and feedback. We'll bring that back to the council meeting of February 5th, and council can direct staff how they wish to either entertain bids or explore options or undertake studies and that process going forward.
You're saying that this is final tonight, this is now declared surplus?
Declared surplus, but council is not required to accept or entertain offers at now or at any point in the future until they decide to do so.
The question was, is this now surplus?
I do believe I answered that, and yes, it is.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to 14, which is bylaws. Item 14.1 is bylaw enforcement officer appointments bylaw amendment. Recommendation reads that bylaw 49-2023 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 25-2023, a bylaw to appoint municipal bylaw enforcement officers for the corporation of the town of Prescott be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Can I have a mover and seconder for discussion? Councillor Young, Councillor Kirkby. Any discussion on 14.1? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Under new business, we have 3 items. 15.1 is resolution of support regarding childcare availability in Ontario. Councillor Burton brought this resolution forward. Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Burton?
Sure.
Please do.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. So this is just a letter of support for the childcare availability in Ontario. There's an increase of pressure on parents. Affordable and high-quality daycare is essential for families supporting the early development of children. The lack of available childcare spaces significant barrier for many parents' ability to participate fully in the workforce. They're having to not be able to work full-time because there's not enough available childcare. The key factors is a shortage of childcare spaces is because the educational requirements imposed on childcare workers. The current educational requirements may be overly restrictive. These requirements result of the shortage of qualified childcare providers. in Ontario. So it really makes it challenging for a young family to find affordable childcare in Ontario. Just like to support this resolution and I'd like to make a motion. And I'm sure that Ms. Belkamp already has that in her works.
Ms. Belkamp?
So based on the past resolution that was brought before council, I have a draft resolution that reads that council of the corporation of the town of Prescott support the resolution from Bonfield Township regarding the need to address the issues of childcare availability in Ontario, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, Honourable Michael Persa, Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, the local member of Provincial Parliament, MPP Steve Clark, and all municipalities in Leeds and Grenville.
Moved.
I moved it.
We have a seconder? Councillor Kirkby? Does anyone need to discuss this? All in favor? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 15.2 is a resolution of support regarding supporting a tax credit for firefighters. Councillors Burton, Campbell, and McConnell brought this resolution forward at the previous meeting. And Fire Chief Rayner is here if we have any questions for him. So who wants to speak to this? Good. Councillor Campbell.
My committee. This is also from Bonfield Township, and I would like us to support their letter. Basically, there's 71% of Canada's total firefighting first responders are volunteers, and obviously our Prescott Fire Department is volunteer-based. Basically, firefighters can claim a $3,000 tax credit if 200 hours of volunteer services were completed in a calendar year. The letter of support is to increase this amount to $10,000. The $3,000 works out to a mere $450 per year, and it basically is $2.25 an hour. So the recommendation is to increase the tax base from $3,000 to $10,000.
Chief, do you have any comments on this?
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Councillor Campbell, for bringing it forward. I'm just, when it reads in the letter, talks about 200 hours of service, we would conduct that amount of time just with our calls. So there's a lot of time involved in training, going out in the community, doing public education and things of that nature. So the fact that I didn't find the number insofar as how long it's been since the $3,000 tax credit, but I think it's certainly merits a $10,000 increase. And again, if the federal government can do something for us here, as you said, there's many firefighters along the province, so that would certainly assist us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Any further questions? This seems like a very good resolution to support. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Yes.
Sorry.
We need to move right a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to read the motion then? Just in case.
So a draft motion reads that council of the corporation of the town of Prescott support the resolution from Bonfield Township regarding Bill C-310 and amendments to the Income Tax Act to increase the amount of the tax credits for volunteer firefighting, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Association of Fire Chiefs of Ontario, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and all municipalities in Leeds and Grenville.
Very good. Mover, Councillor Campbell?
I also have a comment. Could we put the amount to $10,000? You just said increase?
So to increase the amount of tax credit to $10,000?
Yes.
Yep. Would you still like to move it?
Move.
Seconded, Councillor Burton? All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Item 15.3 is making play possible, a gift of recreation. Councillor Kirkby brought this resolution forward, and Matthew, you can speak to this one.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So went back and took a little bit of a look at the history of making play possible, and I believe the first time they submitted a community grant application was in 2018. At that point, they requested $2,000 and they were granted $500. In 2019, they put in an application for 2,000 and they were granted 1,000. But then every year since then, they have not submitted an application. Also based on my review, they did not necessarily demonstrate that the funds were spent in Prescott itself. It was one of the requirements of the community grant program. But that being said, I think certainly it's a good, excellent program, something that we've supported in the past, and I think it would be best served under an application out of the community grant program.
We can encourage them to do that.
Certainly.
Does that sound good to you?
100%.
Okay, so we don't need to do anything else? Great. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Thank you, Councillor Kirkby. That's the end of new business. So next item is notices of motion. There's no notices of motion tonight. There are no proclamations tonight. Is there any media? Probably not. So no questions from the media. There's no closed session, therefore there's no rising report. Item 21 is the confirming bylaw, that bylaw 50-2023 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on December 11th, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed by the seal of the corporation. Can I have a mover and seconder for this? Deputy Mayor Lockett, seconded by Councillor Campbell. All in favor? Thank you. Item 22 is adjournment, that the meeting be adjourned to Monday, January 8th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Moved by Councillor Kirkby, seconded by Councillor Young. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas. And